everyone, and welcome back to my Lawn Bowls for Fun channel. I've had some questions asked for followers on YouTube, so I thought as I can't get up to the bowling club at the moment for reasons that I'm sure you know about, that I would just answer those questions anyway in my little office here in my garage. The first questions are from Ian, who actually asked, I'll read them out. He wants to know the rules of courtesy regarding handshakes before and after the games, for example, where to stand on the bowling green, and what's the rules about talking while the game is going on. But the first one I'll talk about is stepping on and off the green. Should it be by steps only? Well, some bowling greens do have steps, and it makes sense to use them if they're there, but a lot of bowling greens don't have steps at all. And in fact, because it is quite a big step onto a bowling green sometimes, it's something that shouldn't be rushed. And it's the very first thing that as a coach we show new people before we do anything else is obviously, because we're talking about health and safety here, it's important that we ensure that people can get onto the green safely. I can't demonstrate it, unfortunately, because I can't get in the bowling club at the moment. But it's quite sort of straightforward in a way, in that, as you know, if you step onto a bowling green, step forwards in a normal way, if the bowling green is, for example, damp, if there's an early morning dew on there, or if it's been raining, it can be slippery. And if you slip up, if your foot sort of gives away and you fall backwards onto that bank, you're going to do yourself obviously some serious damage. So the one thing that we do tell people to do is step sideways onto a bowling green. So stand next to the bowling green, next to the ditch, and step sideways. Because if you should fall, then the average law of averages says that you generally fall backwards, and all then you'll do is hopefully fall onto the bowling green rather than onto the bank. There's nothing wrong with, of course, asking someone. In fact, I've got a very poor balance mechanism. So if I feel I need help, I just ask someone to help. I just hold on to their shoulder. You've got to ask them first. You can't just grab someone's shoulder, but ask them if I can just borrow their shoulder to make you a bit more steady. Some bowling greens, though, do have steps. It makes sense to use them, especially if you've got any sort of disability. If you, like me, got a poor balance, and I would always use steps, or sometimes the little entrance onto the green. But most greens haven't got that, so just be careful, take your time, step sideways onto the green, and hopefully you won't ever have an accident. So that's the first one. So with regards to the courtesy, shaking hands, etc., well, of course, at the moment we're not doing any of that. Unfortunately, we're not even bowling. But just before this coronavirus thing got really bad, we had already stopped shaking hands. But if we talk before that, if we just, up until recently, it was the general thing that you would always shake hands before and after a game, and always say something like, enjoy the game, or have a good game, whatever you decide you want to say. In a rinks game, for example, the skip will introduce his team to the other team. He'll start off with the lead. The two leads will shake hands, and then they'll shake hands with everybody else. Then the twos will be introduced, and then the threes, and then the skips themselves. So it's always nice to start the game with a handshake and say something pleasant to everybody. And then, of course, after the game is over, regardless of result, even if you're spitting feathers because you wanted to beat that team, you should, of course, still shake hands and say, well done, well played, if they played well, etc. It's just a nice thing to do. Okay, so there's no excuse if you don't do that, really. Now, where to stand? I've, in fact, done a video. If you go on to Lawn Bowls for Fun, it's number 7. And it's about what they call possession of the rink and where to stand, and how you shouldn't interfere with the play of another team once they have possession of the rink. Go and have a look at that, because it does explain it in more detail, but briefly I will go through it now. As long as you stand behind the mat, whoever's on the mat that's going to be bowling. They shouldn't be distracted in any way. So if you can stand behind the mat, obviously if they're facing down the green, you should be behind the mat so that they can't see you at all. Even if you make a slight movement, if you're standing adjacent to them, it can be very off-putting. So I always stand about a yard behind the mat as well. I make sure I'm well out of eyesight of the bowler that's just about to bowl down the green. As for sort of talking, well, it's a very social game, and obviously it's nice that people do talk, but they should be mindful of the fact that if someone's about to bowl, they don't start a conversation with someone right next to them, or in a loud voice. I think generally talking does go on, but they normally keep their voices down, or stand away far away as you can from the person that's actually bowling. It would be boring not to have any conversation at all in a game, but there has to be, you have to use a bit of common sense really. Certainly don't crack jokes when someone's about to bowl, or shout down the other end of the green if you see a mate of yours, "Hello Tom," or something, a very, very loud voice. When someone's about to bowl, that would be unacceptable. So just be sensible, keep your voice down. Sure, it's a social game, whether you're playing seriously or just socially. You should be aware that you can put people off if you talk quite loudly, or crack a joke, or suddenly say something just when they're about to bowl. It's not really on, so common sense really prevails. So I hope that answers those, Ian. Thanks for the question. Another person that follows me on the internet sent me an email. Incidentally, you don't have to put comments on YouTube if you don't wish to. You can just email me at lawnbowlsforfun@gmail.com, and I'll always respond to that. So John, another person that follows me, has asked me a couple of questions. One of them is he's a bit confused about tossing the coin and who has the mat first. And what the trial ends are all about, and giving away the mat, for example. So let's try and cover that now. Before any match, unless it's a friendly, in a friendly game, it's the visiting side that always starts the game. So you don't toss a coin to see who starts the game in that situation. But in any other sort of situation, a competitive game or league game, whether you're playing home or away, the two team captains will toss a coin before the game to see who decides whether they want the mat or not. If it's a team game, it's the team captain that does that. If it's just your rink playing another rink, then the two leads usually would toss the coin, although sometimes the skips do that as well, but usually it's the leads that toss the coin. But as I say, in a team game, it's already been dealt with by the team captain. Then it's up to the person that wins the toss as to whether they decide to actually play or give the mat away. And giving the mat away means letting the other team start. So why would you do that? Sometimes it's just being nice. Other times there's a very good tactical reason. If you're playing in a game where your team are better at short to medium length jacks, and the opposition prefer longer ones, then obviously taking the mat straight away and putting the jack at a length that you prefer is an advantage. Also, sometimes when you're a visitor to a green and you've had trial ends, which I'll cover in a minute, if you've had trial ends and you're still not sure which way to go, it's sometimes not a bad thing to let the home team start, and then you follow whatever they do, because they're obviously using that side of the green for a reason. Sometimes also skips like to have the last bowl, so they might prefer you to give the mat to the opposition. That usually only happens though on an extra end. It used to be you could give the mat away every single end if you wish. If you win the previous end and you've got the mat, you could give it away. You can't do that anymore. You can only actually give the mat away on the very first end of a game, and also if it's a game of pairs, triples and rinks where it's a draw is possible, because it's played by the number of ends, not buying in a singles game. For example, you play the first one to score 21. But in all the other games where you play to a number of ends, it could be a draw and then you play an extra end. You can give away the mat in that one as well. And that's sometimes where a very good skip would prefer to have the last bowl of the game. It's a debate whether you think the advantage is putting the mat exactly where you want it and putting the jack where you want it, or having the last bowl. The real top players in the country, I think, would always opt for having the last bowl. But I've been bowling 35 years and I've only met about sort of half a dozen people really that are good enough to make that last bowl really count. And it's worth them doing that. Really, I prefer to decide where we're going to put the mat and the jack, especially if the opposing team have got a different favourite length to what you have. But that's entirely up to you and the skip to discuss as to whether you give the mat away on the very last end or not. Now, as for trial ends, a visiting side to a green that hasn't played on that green before, rather than start straight into a match, you get a trial end. So you put 2 bowls up the green and 2 bowls back the other way usually, and that's if it's a pairs, a triples or a rinks game. They do what you call a 2 up and 2 down. Everybody gets 2 bowls up the green and 2 bowls back down the green. It usually makes sense as well to put them both up opposite sides, so one on the forehand, one on the backhand, because you're trying to see what the green is going to be doing and how much speed you need to put, send the ball down the green, how slow the green is, and also you watch what your opposition are doing. So it's usually just to give you an idea of how the green is playing. Sometimes though, if there's a reason why they want the game to finish early because of maybe it's going to be getting dark early, or there's a big storm on the way, you may decide, well, let's not play trial ends. And often when that happens, they say you just score a maximum of 1 shot on the first 2 ends, so that's up and down the green. That saves you having 2 trial ends, which can save you sort of 15 minutes, which if the light is potentially going to be fading on you, then sometimes it happens. In fact, last year we had the situation in the league where the 2 team captains decided that not only were we going to be playing in the dark, but there was some torrential rain due in a couple of hours, and so they decided to reduce the game length. And as long as both teams agreed to do that, it's very unusual for this to happen. But in fact, it was a very good decision, because no sooner had we come off the green, I think we played 18 ends instead of 21, and we didn't play trial ends. And it was agreed before the game started, but no sooner did we come off the green that we did have that torrential rain. So it was a very good idea to do that. But you must agree that before the game starts. You can't start discussing it halfway through, because one team might be in the lead and might prefer to finish early, and that would be unfair. So it must be agreed before the game starts. Very rare that happens. I've not seen it happen very much at all, but it can happen. Right, so I think that covers about most of what was asked there. Just one other thing. There is a little booklet you can buy, and it's called the Laws of the Sport of Bowls, and that's the Crystal Mark third edition, and in fact it's 3.1. I normally have this little booklet. It's about this size, but unfortunately my copy is in my locker in my indoor bowling club, along with my other coaching's kit, and I actually can't get to it at the moment because it's all locked up. So, but you can go on to worldbowls.com and you can view a copy there, and either download it, print it out, or order a copy. And it really is the Bible of the laws of the game. And although it's quite a serious read, there's a lot there to read about, and a lot of it you probably won't really understand initially, but the answer to most of your questions would be found in that book somewhere. It's always worth having a copy, because although I've been bowling for many years, there are still things that happen on a green that I don't know the answer to, so I'll have that in my bowls bag, and I refer to it either if I've got time during the game or after the game is finished. So over the years I've built up a pretty good knowledge of the rules. I can't admit that I know them all. I probably don't, but I do know most of them now. And if in doubt, then obviously just look it up in the little yellow book, I call it, because the answer is there somewhere. There would be a copy of that at every bowling club anyway. There is a copy at the bowling club just up the road if I was in there, but I'm not going up there today. Well, I can't, it's not open at the moment. So, but do download a copy or order a copy or just view it online, because it is a good read, albeit quite a heavy read. So I wouldn't do it all in one go, but maybe just do a section at a time. Just read through it so you understand each of the laws of the game. It's very good. Right, I hope you find that all useful, and I'll see you again soon.